So my apologies for that. So now we're going to go into the screen share itself. If it's going to do this for me, let's see. I may need to open up something. Yeah. Okay. Just making the text a little bigger for us. And here we are. So we were on verse 29, and where it said, Va'asita ka'arotav. Now, these are descriptions of various vessels and elements of the table, and figuring out there's no real context to this other than we know that it has to do with this piece of furniture. So we know that it's part that it's either either vessels or pieces of the furniture. We don't know. I mean, you have to have tradition to give us some sense of what these words mean, because there isn't enough of a context to define them narrowly. So ka'arotav, we're translating it as bowls. Okay. So here we go. This is the Aramaic translation. Onkelos, he translates it as magisohi, okay, which I think is some kind of, this would be some kind of bowl or vessel or something like that. Kapotav, I translated it as a ladle. A bazich, I think, is like a bowl or a jug. But you can see the bowls and the ladles, I think, may have come from Sepharia. Or I looked at kapotav, and the word kaf, by the way, has to do with your hand, the palm of your hand. So a ladle, something like that. Difficult. Ksotav. So this is based on the Aramaic here, mechilate. And I looked it up in the Jastrow dictionary, and he mentioned it as measuring jars. We'll get into, down here, you'll see, we get into a lot of more detail. And I have this system, J stands for Jastrow. This is the page. The page is divided. I've shown you before. And the B is the B side of the page, the right side of the page, to find this particular word, ma'arechet. So, man kiotav, well, lenakot means to clean, okay? That's one translation, but Rashi, as I said, goes in a different direction entirely. Asher yusach. And this was lovely because you're all familiar with the word sukkah, right? Tabernacle. And the word sukkah comes from the covering of it. L'sachot means to cover. So covering with which they are covered, and zahav tahor taseotam, that's fairly straightforward now, and that is pure gold, you shall make them. And now Rashi's going to have to give us a lot of help because of these words that don't have a clear connection because of context, lack of context. So we're already somewhat into this commentary, as you see. This is where we left off yesterday. But he says, kapotav. Hein bezichin. So there's that bezichin, bezachohi, the Aramaic up here. Censers. Shenotnin bahem levona, in which one puts frankincense. Levona is frankincense. Ushtaim hayu, and there were two of them. Lishnei I think komtse. Lishnei komtse nervona. The two comets is the way in which it's a handful. It's a very special handful. I'll stop the share just for a second and try to illustrate for you what I'm talking about. The priest used to dip his hand into the frankincense and hold it like that. And the amount of frankincense that was here, and that's what he'd use. So this is a comets, right? Incidentally, it seemed to me like, do you know the vowel, the kamatz? That it looks sort of like that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what a kamatz looks like. So, okay, I'll go back to the share at this point. So it's that pinch. And now I have to find this again. Here it is. Good. Simple enough. So the handfuls of frankincense, shenotnin al shtei ha'ma'arachot, on which you place on the two arrangements of loaves is what it's talking about. A ma'arechet is an arrangement. And as it says, we know that Rashi is reasonably rigorous, okay, quite rigorous. When he says something, he doesn't expect you to just believe it. He tries to provide support and proof of why he's saying it. It says later in Vayikra Kaf Hey, Leviticus chapter 25. I think in chapter 25, it talks again about the use of the aromatic spices and things like that. V'natata al ha'ma'arechet, so it must be talking about the showbread table. You shall place on the arrangement levona zakah, pure frankincense. So, ksotav, there's this word. Heim kemin, he says this is a kind of chatza'e kanim, a split reed is what it's saying. Chalulim, hollow. Split hollow reeds. Shenistakin le'orkan, which are split in by their length. So if you can please picture this hollow reed that was split in half down the length of the reed. And now this is a kasot, right? Dugmatam, their shape, Asa shel zahav, and he made their shape out of gold. Umesader shlosha al rosh kol lechem, and he arranges 3 at the top of each loaf of bread. Sheyeshev lechem ha'echad, so that one loaf should sit al gabei otan, should sit on those kanim, on those reeds. Umavdilim, and they divide bein lechem lelechem, between one loaf and the other loaf that's on top of it. So the loaves aren't just stuck one on top of the other. And I don't know how well you can remember some of the pictures we saw, but those pictures had nothing to do with this, right? They had the loaves just stuck on each other. But this at least Rashi is certainly not digging this out of his own head. He is basing this on what he has read in like the Talmud and the Midrashim, etc., etc. Kadesh tikanes haruach. Why was this done? So there's a separation between one loaf and the loaf that's on top of it, right? So that the wind can enter beinehem, between those loaves, velo yitafshu, so that they don't become moldy. Uvelashon Aravi, and he says, and in Arabic. By the way, do you see that this little nun here that I'm pointing at? I had to put that in. It was missing in my text, and so I had this word, and it said uvalshu, and that has a meaning to it. Okay, I finally figured out that, piecing this together, this was like a little bit of a minor mystery for me, right? But it absolutely is Vilashon Aravi, and in Arabic, Kol Davar Chalul, anything that is hollow. Karui, and this is his word, and I don't know, is it kaswa? Because there's a wa sound in Arabic. I don't know, and I don't know enough Arabic to recognize what this word is.
It does say kaswa in my text.
Oh, good, yay! good guess. Yeah,
Lauren,
Yeah.
did yours also say Vayikra Kaf Hey? Because I just perused Vayikra Kaf Hey, and it's about the Jubilee year and stuff like that.
okay,
So,
let me look. Give me a
Don't know.
second, and I will double check, because Safari is very nice about, if I can get into it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I had to, okay, sorry, I had to redo my, okay. Yeah.
No, mine says menorah 96A, 97A. I
So
guess it's
Menachot, I believe that would be
Menachot. Okay,
Yeah,
MEN.
Menachot. Right, let me look here, 1 second.
I guess.
Let's see, 1 second. Okay, try Leviticus 24.
Okay, well, all right. I'm right there. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, he says Menachot 97a regarding all of this.
Yeah, the last one said Leviticus 24:7, that was in the last bit of Rashi about the spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, there's the stuff about baking the 12 loaves and and 24. So yes, there's.
Oh, Leviticus 24:7, verse 7, and thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each pile. So
There you go.
there are unfortunately misprints, right?
Yeah, well, we need to find those.
Yes, we do. Oh,
We do
gosh.
for future reference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. There's the frankincense. I see it right now. Okay.
Well, thank
Sorry,
you.
but I'm a
No,
stickler for that stuff.
Thank you for checking,
Okay.
really and truly.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay. I could almost interrupt myself to say that I was looking at a Rashi where the Rashi has a vav in the text, and when you look at the text that we have, that vav is missing. There's no vav there, meaning and he bases a commentary on that vav, which isn't in our text. But I don't want to go back to it and show you. But this is part of this is why what we're reading, right, and taking to be an authoritative manuscript, I mean, that's a whole study in itself, where we have scholars have created what are called critical editions, where they go back to very early manuscripts or very early printed editions and compare the Rashis in them. And these critical editions will show you the distinctions between these manuscripts. That's another level, right? Another level of deconstruction. But
It just depends on what you're working with, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
right. And of course, it can make a difference in terms of the meaning of things. But still, on this level of deconstruction that we're doing, it's a major level, as you know, right? That if you were just to read the Torah text itself without this commentary, you'd get a very different sense of what it's about. So let's see where we are. Okay. Here we are. Umenakiotav, right? Targumo umechilte. So Rashi is saying the Targum, the Aramaic translation is umechilte. That's the word he uses. And he explains, hein snifin. This is so interesting, by the way. This is not the way Rashi is understanding mechilte, right? This is a meaning. This is what I looked up, right? So this is in Jastro, page 7082b, and the second meaning, right? Mechilte, meaning measuring bowls. But that isn't how Rashi understands it here. He says, hein snifim, they are attachments, kemin yitedot. And I translated as yitedot, but as pegs. But the truth is, these are very long pegs. And that's that picture that I showed you. Now, that picture just shows you that one long piece of that pole, so to speak, right? So maybe I should change this and say poles, because that's what he means.
So in mine, it says branches like golden pegs.
Yeah.
And then in parentheses, Mizrahi explains that they were like columns.
Exactly. That's why I'm translating as poles. And this is how we understand it. Umdim ba'aretz, they stand on the ground, ugvohim ad lamala, and they reach up, their height is upwards, min hashulchan, and they stand higher than the table itself. Harbe, a great deal. In other words, they're almost twice as high as the table itself. Keneged gove ma'arechet halechem, and this is opposite the height of the arrangement of the bread. Umefutsalin shisha, and they are branched off in six rows. And he says this is the Rom, okay, Eliezer Mizrahi. This is the Mizrahi, right, that was being that Lauren was referring to. Gores Chamisha. He says that it's not shisha. There aren't 6 branches, there are only 5, because even though there's 6 loaves on each arrangement, right, to make a total of 12, they're 6 and 6. The bottom loaf rests on the table itself. And so the first pole and story, so to speak, so there are only 5 of these things, okay, that go in between the poles. Pitzulim zeh lamala mizeh. This is referring now to the kanim, to those those canes that we said, those split canes that are one above the other. V'rashei hakanim shebein lechem lelechem, and the tips of those poles, of those reeds that are between one loaf and another loaf, smuchim al otan, ptsulin, and they rest on those branches. Kedei shelo yichbad masah halechem, so that the weight of the bread, right? I'll translate. Masah means literally to carry, but it's talking about the weight of the bread. Lo yichbad, it shouldn't be too heavy. Ha'el yonim al hatachtonim, the ones that are above over the ones that are below. Vayishabru, and consequently those lower ones would break. V'lashon mechiltei, and he understands. So Rashi explains to us why he's understanding this word mechiltei, not as measuring bowls, okay, or measurements, but as something else. And he says the language, this term mechiltei, has to do with sovlotav, that which bears something else. In other words, mechiltei means it's like av. The a in ending here in Aramaic is like, so in other words, it's his, right? His, the third person masculine possessive, right? To bear it. Kamor, and he gives an example now in the Torah, rather in the Bible itself, where it says, Mil'eti hachil, there's the hachil, right? And I was exhausted from carrying or from bearing or something like that, putting up with. Aval, so he goes on to say, the next word, aval lashon mankiot. He says, but when it comes to the term mankiot, eni yodea, he says, this is Rashi speaking to us personally, right? He says, I don't know, ech nofel al snifim, how in fact this word menakiot can have the meaning of branches. V'yesh mechachmei Yisrael. So Rashi's sharing with us the research he's done in this. V'yesh mechachmei Yisrael, and there are those sages of Israel, Omrim, who say, and this is in Tractate Menachot, page 96, Ksotav elu snifim, that the ksotav are these branches, shemakshin oto, I think it's a shin here, right? Even though it's ksotav, they keep it firm, umachazikim oto, and they hold it, shelo yishaber, that the bread shouldn't break, or that it shouldn't break. Umankiotav, and the word mankiotav, elu hakanim, those are the, in other words, they just reverse how we're trying to translate this. And I think this is such a wonderful, if you have the patience for this is such an incredible example of the rigor that Rashi is trying to apply here in the construction of the tabernacle, that, you know, there are no pictures in the Torah, and how we depend so heavily on tradition to help us get a picture of what's going on. And they're called mankiotav. This refers to the reeds, right? I believe sheminakin oto, because they keep it clean, keep the loaves clean. Shelo yitafesh, that it shouldn't become moldy. Aval Onkelos, he says, goes on to say, but Onkelos, in other words, the author of that Aramaic translation, Shetirgem Mechiltei, who translates that word as Mechiltei, that is the word, I think, Kesotav, okay? Haya Shoneh, he learns it, Kedivrei HaOmer, like the opinion that holds Mankiot Hein Snifin, that the Mankiot are these branches. So interesting, because I was going a whole different direction there. But he's saying, you know, that's because he's translating the Aramaic in a different way than I was. I'm sorry, forgive me. That was Mechiltei. Forgive me. So now we go. The Asher Yusach Bahem, writes, he says, with which they are covered. And he says, Asher Yechuseh Bahen, with which, that's exactly what he's saying here, which is with which they are covered. Va'al Kasotav Hu Omer. And he says this about the Kasotim. of asher yusach hayu alav. So he says, with which they are covered, shayu alav kemin schach, because on these, I believe he's now talking about these canes, right? It depends, of course, on whose opinion you're going with, right? But there was some kind of covering, and that's the word sukkah, right? This covering. And because the sukkah that we talk about, right, is all about the roof and the protection, the kisui. And again, this schach, look at this. There's a transposition of the kaf and the samach here. So schach and kisui, right? They're connected words. V'chein b'makom acher, and likewise in a different place, Omer, it states, and this is again in some reference in Numbers chapter 4, v'et kasot hanesech, right? He talks about the he uses this word kasot and nesech, right? The kasot that are coverings. V'zeh v'zeh, and each one of them of what we're talking about, yusach, they cover. The hanesech, and this hanesech, Lashon, is a term of schach, of covering, the kisuiheim. This is all has to do with covering. Do you want me to? Oh, I see that we are out of time, and so I'm going to have to move the marking down here for tomorrow, and hopefully we are actually going to complete the reading about the table, about the construction of the table. So we'll have, let's see, here we are. Just had to rediscover where this is. Okay. So I'm going to stop the share and we'll need to get started. Let's say a Kaddish D'Rabbanan. And Lisa, this is in memory of your father because it says your site today. And so our lesson was, I had this in mind at the very beginning, that this should be in his memory, Le'ilui Nishmato. Lisa, are you comfortable saying Kaddish D'Rabbanan?
I would love to respond.
Okay, what if I were to suggest that instead of Kaddish D'Rabbanan, circumstances altering cases, you say Mourner's Kaddish?
I'd love to, thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, I'll let you go ahead and say Mourner's Kaddish. Harlan, would you like to respond to Lisa?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You need a couple of more people to be on camera.
Yeah, if they
I'm
will.
happy to
please.
do it if you're not recording.
Oh, I won't record.
We have a man there.
I'll
We have
stop
a man.
recording. Yes, but I'll stop recording. Thank you.